Well, hello everybody. I'm Dale from the Precept classes in Cullman, Alabama, and I thank you for continuing to walk through this study with us, Passing the Mantle. This is video number 2 of lesson 5. And this is an interesting little encounter right here. We encounter the Joashes again, being called various names, so if you're a little confused about that, go back and review again, or honestly don't worry about it. Just pay attention to what's happening with the king of the north and the king of the south, Israel and Judah, okay? So what we see here, and make sure you read the scripture, by the way, okay? Don't just take what I'm saying right here. Go back and read it, meditate upon it. So it's in the 37th year of Joash, the king of Judah, okay, the king of the south. In that year, Jehoash, the son of Jehoahaz, becomes king over Israel in Samaria. So that's the king in the north. And he reigned 16 years. And he did as all the kings of Israel did, the northern kingdom. He did evil in the sight of the Lord. And he did not turn away from all the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat. He walked in these sins. Not only did he not turn away from them, he walked in them. And so these first few verses right here, verses 10 through 14, are literally an overview of his life. And then we have this little vignette of what happened in his life. Elisha becomes sick with the illness of which he was to die. I love that little phrase right there. You know, sometimes we look at these guys and we think, well, you know, they died in particular spectacular ways, and sometimes they faced illnesses in the same way that we do. And so he was sick, and Joash, the king we're talking about, notice his name's different right here, but it's the same name, just an abbreviated version. The king of Israel comes down to him, and he weeps over him, and he cries to him, my father, the chariots of Israel and his horsemen. And you say, wait a minute, I've heard this before. Well, this is what Elijah had said to Elijah when he was being taken up, and he saw those chariots. Remember that? And so I don't know if this is something that was said that meant there was a time of life that is ending right here, or the gatherers were coming and they were seeing something happen, or if this king knew what Elisha had said. In other words, what was his motivation right here? Was he sincere, or was he feigning this interest? Was he really after the power that Elijah had? We don't know. We do know how he lived. And that does not bode well because he walked in the sins. So sick Elijah, remember he's sick this time, he's ill, tells the king to do something, to get a bow and some arrows, and so he does. Then Elijah tells him, okay, lay your hands on the bow and on the arrow. And when he does, Elisha lays his hands on top of the king's, and he opens the window toward the east, and he commands him to shoot. And so they shoot together. And Elisha tells him what this is all about. He said, the Lord's arrow of victory, even the arrow of victory over Aram, for you will defeat the Arameans at Aphek until you have destroyed them. The man of God, the prophet, is telling the king what will occur here. And then the man of God, Elisha, tells him, take the arrows, strike the ground. Now, for years and years, I thought that meant that he literally took them and he struck them, you know, and you've probably heard that taught, heard that preached like I have. I'm not too sure about that now because they're shooting out that window right there, and I'm sort of the mindset, and I could be wrong with this, that Elisha was telling him, hey, continue to strike the ground, because when they fired those arrows, they struck the ground somewhere out there, correct? And so anyway, in whichever way it happened, the king did what Elisha told him to do, but he only did it 3 times. Well, the man of God, Elisha, was very angry with him. And he said, you should have done it 5 or 6 times. Then you would have struck Aram to destruction. Now, I don't know why he told him you should have done it 5 or 6 times. Maybe he knew how many arrows he had left right there. Whatever the motivation right here, the idea is this. That the king, I think, was just sort of going through the motions, okay? Just sort of going through the motions, and he was doing what the man of God told him to do, but he really wasn't into it, shall we say? In other words, it's revealing some things right here of what occurred. If he had really been exuberant and fired 5 or 6 of them, he would have been guaranteed victory. And so we see that Elijah dies. We'll pick that up in our next time together. But here's what I want us to think of today. Do we do the same thing? Do we manifest doubt in our faith? Are we like the king was? Are we just going through the motions and we really don't have faith, but we want that power? Do we hear from the Lord? And when we do hear from the Lord, or from the word of the Lord, do we just sort of haphazardly, halfway respond to it? Or do we really trust in him? Take these things before God right now and see what he says to you. And I'll see you again next time.